It was fun. It was definitely fun to build. I was a little intimidated about like, oh great, the one I didn't want to win. I was hoping like the little pre-World War II fighter plane would win out, but no, I ended up with
the big and flashy, the bold,
the biggest
brave.
one on the list. Yeah.
the Russian counter to the F-15, the comparable craft. You have a one-on-one gray copy there that's kind of the design model. Obviously went with this awesome blue camo for the actual release. Really just a stunning plane.
Well, thanks.
And I like the ability to display it.
Yeah, it comes with a stand. The stand actually has multiple different settings. You can display. This is the standard. This is, if you read the instruction book, this is the way it is. If you have any of the other previous kits that have the aircraft stand in, there are some other ways it's displayed. I do include the different pieces, so you can copy, like say the F-16 or some of the other ones that we've done. And then this one also has a vertical stand.
Yeah, right. Which looks really cool, especially with these. I think is part of the
yeah, it is. That holds it. They become the engine thrust because the way that the engines are connected actually makes a convenient way to hold the airplane up. They're on the same axis as the pins that hold the main aircraft standing.
Yeah, it's pretty sturdy and swooshable. If you guys have checked out Instagram, we've seen Dan fly this thing over his head one-handed a couple of times. I think maybe even both. At the same time at once.
That's not hard. The problem with all the missiles on it, though, it makes it like hard to grab it without knocking a rocket off, because they are just, Lego bricks after.
Yeah, right. A little more swooshable when it's loadout free.
Yeah.
So tell me about it. So once it won the fan poll, you got the blueprints ready to go. How did it start to come together? Well,
the gray one was first. I wanted to build it first, and it was kind of like, even looking at doing research, this is, part of my process. I want to learn everything there is to learn about everything I'm working on. And so I went and bought a book about 2 inches thick on the Su-27 and all of its various models. And I was, the original fan poll was the 27. Of course, there's the Su-33, all the 30, the 33, the 34, all the derivatives, but I wanted to start at the beginning. So I built the original Su-27. It's still the Flanker B because it's not the original. This is what you would consider the classic flanker. So this is the design that they settled on for the full production after the first 10 prototypes or so were built. But even when they were in prototype stage, they were starting to camouflage them. So it became apparent to me that it wasn't going to stay gray forever. Because it wouldn't be representative of the various flankers that were in production or based around the world. So I ended up picking this camouflage, which is a Baltic camouflage. You actually see it all over wherever the SUs are on an oceanic. Either they're based on carriers, there's a carrier version, the K version, and then there is but this particular plane was photographed several times by several other airplanes, Allied airplanes, NATO airplanes, in the Baltic Sea. So this one's kind of famous for harassing NATO aircraft. You can see it's a Red 6. There's a few others that are sort of infamous for like close calls with B-52s.
Yeah, just buzzing over them and stuff.
And tankers and of course, any Allied, I guess NATO, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
Aircraft that get a little bit too close for comfort to the Russian bases up there by St. Petersburg. Yeah,
very, very cool. Definitely an effective nautical camo. So the part that I'm interested in when you started designing, one of the things I noticed right away was kind of how there's this break at the neck.
Right.
And when I first saw that in the design, I was like, how the heck are you going to do that, Dan?
Well,
the nose actually comes down.
And it's actually common for a lot of fighters to have the nose pointed down. And the reason being is when the thing lands, you have to be able to see over the nose.
Right.
See where you're going. And it was even the Corsair in World War II had this problem where the nose of the Corsair was so long and the plane would come at an attitude like nose up to land. They couldn't see, so they actually figured that one out in the Corsair. They would come in at a curve, so they would actually, they'd be looking sideways at the runway or the aircraft carrier as they were coming in for landing. So because they couldn't look over the nose, they could look to the side of it. On this, just like the Concorde, some of those bigger aircraft, the nose would go down, like the Valkyrie XB-71 or the 72, whatever that one was. Same sort of thing, that the nose would actually go down, but fighter aircraft aren't that big. F-16 is a good example of an American one, that the nose is actually pointed slightly downwards.
Sure.
So it doesn't affect the aerodynamics at all. They're able to compensate by changing the shape a little bit. And this one, yeah, it does have that very distinctive curve. You see it a little bit in the MiG-29, which you may notice the similarity. I mean, this is basically a MiG-29 on steroids. And the reason there's an actual specific reason that they're almost identical, just different sizes. Is the MiG-29 was designed to be like the Russian answer to the smaller American fighters, like the F-16 at the time, the F-18, and it was easier and cheaper for the Soviet Union at the time and Russia after the Soviet breakup to use one single design. They could make one aerodynamic design and then just scale it up. So the MiG was intended to be like a cheaper sort of like dogfighting fighter, whereas the Su-27 would be the giant big brother. Would be
exactly.
The air superiority, long range missile standoff, have bigger payload capacity. Was never originally intended to be a ground attack aircraft. So this configuration, as you see, the original Su-27 only has an air scanning radar.
Right.
So it's designed specifically for air superiority. It's only designed to fight other aircraft.
Right, exactly. Make sure that you have control of the skies.
Right.
Unless maybe there's an F-15 around. We'll see.
There are other variants that do have. I mean, they did come up with later designs, better radar, stuff like that. But with a ground scanning radar for ground attack, that would be a much. That was a later development.
Yeah, right. Obviously, there's been a whole bunch of different improvements maybe made on this one necessarily, but that is interesting to know that they keep the same aerodynamic shape to kind of streamline the process of the different designs as they come along. That's kind of, there's brilliance in that for sure.
Well, it's economy. I mean, when the Soviet Union broke up, suddenly the cash flow dried up to the development. So Bigoyevich and Sukhoi are two different design bureaus, but they share the same benefactors. So if they could actually share some of that same funding, it's beneficial to both organizations.
Yes, not your jet, our jet.
yeah, for sure. And it's interesting the way that the Soviet system is different than ours. Here we have competing companies with their own factories making their own products,
bidding on contracts.
Right. And in there, it's actually sometimes you'll see competing products built in the same factory because it's factory number A or whatever is building. The factory is the size of a city, so they might actually be building different competing
under
design competitions under the same manufacturing process.
Right.
So it's actually, there's a different economy, different scale, different things going on there. Which system's better? I guess it's arguably.
Yeah, time will tell. Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know if it'll ever know. There's probably pros and cons, and I'm sure there's lots of waste. And the same things the same sort of comical shenanigans going on everywhere. I don't think any one system has a monopoly on on weirdness going on.
But definitely cool to be producing something like this, and then obviously on our end being able to transform it into Lego. What an undertaking. So what, other than the breakneck design, walk me through it a little bit. What were some of the speed bumps, and then what do you really like about the way it came together?
Well, obviously the neck was a surprise. Getting that to work, and it works just right. I mean, it's like a 7-degree slope, and I was able to get the actual. There is lots of research out there, and I was like, this has to have that. I can't just make it a straight on, and I didn't want to slope it down. It's too big of a plane to just like step it down with plane. So I actually there's a big Technic frame in there. It's quite sturdy actually. I mean you can hold the plane up by the nose, no problem. I mean there's so many ways you can hold this one. The gray one it's cool because the gray means I can use bigger pieces in it.
Right.
So it's a lot sturdier by the fact that there's no like break by the color. So this is a lot sturdier. This it's still fairly sturdy. It's not like a super delicate flower.
I know what you mean though. You can't. You got to make sure it's broken up so that the camo flows properly.
Right, and that does create more seams and more ways to break it. There's just, where do we start? You have the landing gear. The landing gear do fold up. The model here has them folded up. That's of course, a minimum requirement of any fighter.
Well, especially when it comes with a stand.
Right.
You got to have that stuff folded up.
Yep. So the stand is for display purposes only. Obviously, this was sitting on the table. The landing gear are real.
Yeah, totally functional.
They do kind of lock into place. This does have an air brake.
I love that.
So like the real thing. So when you're like, your B-52 is your target is flying at like 450 or 500 miles an hour, and you're flying at like over, almost 1,000.
Right. And you got to slow down next to them.
And there's just some pretty cool footage. And you go to YouTube, there's all kinds of footage of these things, like just
of this jet.
Yeah, this one too. This in particular. They'll fly in, they'll turn their air brakes on, then they'll
just leave.
do some friendly greetings and take off. Usually like in front of the nose of
hand gestures. Right.
International relations.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's one sort of neat feature. That's expected. The rudders actually do turn the ailerons up and down. I can't wait to do the next generation. So if we do like an SU-33 or something with the thrust vectoring, I want to make it so when you turn the
everything
ailerons,
goes.
The jet nozzles will actually turn with it. So I wanted to do it this, but I also was like, well, let's stick to the SU-27. We'll do some upgrades later. So,
sure. Okay. Cool. More things to come. Right. Yes, we love to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And if we do the next generation, you'll definitely be able to get different payloads because this is the air-to-air. On this one I only have the two
the sidewinders or
right. The Russian equivalent. They're the bigger missiles, the Alamo missiles. They're kind of equivalent to our Sparrow missile. They're like a longer range, shoot down from like over the horizon almost kind of distance. That's like, you're an interceptor. You want air superiority. You want to be able, like, so let's say that your airspace is being threatened by or invaded by an enemy. You don't want to like wait to say hi or wave to them or have to use your guns on them. You want to go in and shoot as far away as possible.
Especially as soon as they crack your airspace, right? I mean, that's kind of the give and go of like, all right, fire away.
So the bigger Alamo missiles on there. There's no stickers on this.
No, it is
except I should point out with the caveat that the canopy
is the vinyl sticker.
Right.
Otherwise, the rest of it is all printed elements. Which I was going to say, I really love the way, especially here and here, that you made it work. So that we did a little cross element printing, but nothing to the point of craziness.
No, and these are all the modern. This is stuff like we've just with the Alligator, the KA-52. We started doing a little bit more fancy printing and develop these sort of like new, hey, that's the new Russian insignia. So let's use it. We'll be able to recycle this for future models as well. So possibly even standalone tiles. We haven't done any. We have like World War II insignias. We haven't really done too much of the modern stuff. So it'd be kind of cool to throw those out there.
Yeah.
Let people do it. The vents on here are printed. The same on this. I did not print myself a number when I did this one. I just basically I caught them as they were printing and said, hey, give me some extra tiles in gray so I can finish my gray one.
Complete the one of one.
Right, yeah, so this is mine. Usually I don't keep a copy, I guess by default, because we have a prototype stays here at GHQ.
You kind of keep a copy, but you keep it where people can come look at it.
Right, and this is the, very rarely do we keep an original. I think this is probably maybe the third prototype model that we've actually
held on to.
It wasn't like an actual like production version or something like that, so yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, it did kind of mark a significant return for you to the modern aircraft lineup, and by no small, you didn't ease into it at all. You know what I mean? You dove right off.
And we're, like the helicopters. I mean, I've done a lot of helicopters, so the KA-52 is a great model to do, but there's no sweat. There's more helicopters. Oh my God, there's so many more aircraft in the future. It's like I'm taking a break to do Glenn and Cale's trains this week, but after that, it's back into aircraft. It's aircraft. So it's crazy what's coming out.
Well, that gives you some insight into what's coming up in January. Very, very cool. Okay, so obviously this also does come with a minifig, but before we get to that, is there anything else you want to go over this?
No, this is a fun one. It's a premium kit. It's a top tier kit. This is not, as I printed out the plans, I was like, wow, God, this is huge. This is not gonna be like, I envisioned it something like the F-16, and the more and more research I did, I was like, no, this is a real big aircraft.
Yes. This is way closer to the F-15, Brickmania F-15, and
absolutely.
the real F-15 than it is to the F-16.
It would be called the equivalent of the Russian equivalent. So I think the MiG-25 Foxbat looks more like the F-15 at the time. But this is directly. This is more of a direct influence. Russia said, hey, they have this air superiority fighter. We need one too.
What does ours look like?
Right, and this is they call this the super maneuverable fighter. You'd see like the Cobra move, the Pugachev Cobra, where they're it's every aircraft does it. The Swedes started it; wasn't a Russian invention, but the Russians made it famous.
Oh, very, very cool. Like Dan said, only the one sticker, the rest is printed. Does come with this minifig now, so let's kick things over to Landon and take a little bit closer look at the Su-27S pilot. Okay, so now let's go over the minifigure that is included with this jet. I'm kind of disappointed to see that he's not baby blue.
You're disappointed?
I'm a little disappointed he's not baby blue. It's a baby blue jet. Why doesn't he match his jet?
You're not matching your jet?
Yeah, why don't you match your jet?
I guess I hadn't thought of that, but that's a fair point. Now, I'm kind of thinking about that for all fighter pilots. Why don't you match your jet?
Well, because most of them would be just gray, but like this one in particular, like if someone showed up with a jumpsuit that had this camo on it,
do you think
I'd be all about
fighter pilots make fighter pilot noises when they're not? Okay.
So at least turn your radio off if you're going to do radio.
I know it's not the jet making that noise. Survival vest on this minifigure. Let's start from the middle, because why not?
Yeah, sure.
Survival vest in that Flora camouflage, one of my favorite camouflage patterns. So this is similar to minifigures we've seen in the past. A little bit of updates for this guy.
Yeah, right.
He's got these anti-G. So they're called anti-G compression pants. Compression pants.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what happens is that there's like an air membrane in these pants, and so when they are performing like super high G maneuvers, these inflate and they push all the blood from your legs up into your brain, so you don't pass out. So he's got some of these fancy little pants there.
That would be important to not pass out behind the controls of your jet.
And then it's that tan jumpsuit. Again, it's similar, some artwork from previous minifigures, but I think it's coming together to kind of this complete, really cool package. Perfect for this jet.
Yeah, it is really cool. It does. It's a excellent standalone figure on its own.
Just on its own, yeah.
Yeah, and even the Lego elements really work in with the whole thing. So
yeah, I think the Lego helmet is almost a spot-on replica for the Russian fighter pilot helmets. So wonder where they're basing it off. Right?
Gee, I wonder as well. But yeah, that's a really cool figure. Excellent addition to this really, really unique aircraft kit. And nice to see Dan back in the jet building game.
Yeah.
Were you happy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's still got it in him, so it's cool.
All right, that is it for the Su-27 Designer Studio. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next time when we check out another Brickmania kit.